So in order to do this, we need two functions. So I need it, and make them easy for this beginning one. So I need an f of x, and I need a g of x. Again, we can do it at any level you want, but I would, pick something that's fairly straightforward. So if someone give me any basic rule, it has to have a variable. I would avoid squares for this first example here. Anything, I don't care what it is. 2x plus 5, okay, great. All right, I need one for g of x.
7x plus 2.
7x plus, what'd you say? 2, okay. All right, so we're going to do, let's see. We're doing 4 different things with these. Okay, and most of them are very simple, and in fact, they're very intuitive. I probably could just give you some of these problems, and you probably would be able to figure out what to do. Okay, and so the first 3 things are adding, subtracting, and multiplying. Okay, and this is how it's going to be written. This would be the question. So I'm going to write out the steps here first. But if you saw that, what would you think to do? What would be your guess? What would it be? Put them together, and what operation would you use? Yeah, you'd be that. Okay, so, and that's what you would do. Okay, so, and I'm going to write it out because you don't want to mess up your signs, right? You have that one plus this one. And order could make a difference. Especially when you're subtracting, it does make a difference. Okay, so then you're just combining like terms on this. Okay, so then f plus g of x would be what? F plus g of x would be what in this case?
9x plus 7.
9x plus 7. Okay, there you go. Is that okay? Nice and easy. Okay. You'll be able to fit this one on here too. All right, now this does matter the order, because I could switch up the order. F plus g of x happens to be the same as g plus f of x, but on subtraction that's no longer true. And I wrote this one out, and it didn't really make that big a difference because we were adding. But since we're subtracting, I would write them out because it will affect everything, okay? So, again, this is going to be 2x plus 5. Now we are subtracting 7x plus 2. Okay, and so why does this one matter now? Why? Yeah, okay, so basically what she's saying is, right, we got to distribute this negative to both of these things. Okay, so you have to make sure that you do that. Order makes a difference. G minus F is going to give us something slightly different. Okay, so again, I'm going to write out everything. It'd be 2x plus 5 minus 7x minus 2. Okay, and so then f minus g of x would end up being what?
Negative 5x plus 3.
Negative 5x plus 3. Is that okay?
Why would it be minus 3?
Because this doesn't change, right? It's still going to be a positive 5. Okay? All right, but again, the order makes a difference on the subtraction ones, because we would be subtracting the other thing. So just be careful. This next one is f times g of x. And so it's exactly what it sounds like. But again, I'm going to use the parentheses. I'm going to set it up. And don't make mistakes just because you don't like writing things out. because you see something like this, and maybe this is a little review, but there was a special name for the way you did these. It was, what? It was an acronym. Well, you always do that. You always do that. But this is a specific one because we're multiplying these two things together. Begins with an F. Foil. Yeah, you got to foil these, right? Don't forget about that. You have two things in parentheses, right? Everything needs hit. It's like distributing twice. Okay? So, if you draw your arrows, like you got to take that 2x to both of them. And then you got to take the 5 to both of them. And then combine like terms. Okay? Don't forget about this stuff. Again, it's an easy class if you remember everything that you've ever done in math. Okay, but if you don't, then you got a little bit of work. Okay, so what's 2x times 7x? 14 what? 14x squared. What's 2x times 2? Okay, so plus 4x. Right, we took care of that. First outer, inner, last. So now we're doing positive 5 times 7x. What is it again? 35x, thank you. And then 5 times 2? Okay, plus 10. Everything in this class is simplifying, okay? 90% of what you're doing, well, that's a ridiculous number. I don't know. A lot of what you're doing is simplifying, and then a lot of what other things that you're doing is just plugging things in, okay? So always simplify so you're not done, right? Because we have these two. That's 14x to the second, that's right. Because when you multiply, right, not only do you multiply the coefficients together, but you also have to multiply the variables together, okay? Yeah, very, very important. Because if you don't have that, then all of a sudden you're going to combine more things than you can combine. Okay, so yeah, definitely be careful. So then the final answer here is 14, excuse me, x squared plus 39x plus 10. You can't go any further because there's no more like terms. So is that okay? So let's do, what was the f function again? 2x plus 5. Okay, so if the question was that, what would you do? Okay, you plug in 2 for x, and how do you say that? F of 2, right? Okay, so if this was instead, how do you say that? F of 10, and what would you do? Plug it in for x, okay? Right, you just took that quiz, and there was this goofy thing. I don't know, it's some Greek letter, I don't even remember which one it is anymore, but what do you do with that? Plug it in, and how would you say it? F of whatever it is. It doesn't even matter, okay? All right, so then, what was our g function?
7x plus 2.
Okay. All right, so here's what the question ends up being. This would be so how would you say that? Very good. Right? F of g of x. Is that okay? F of g of x. That's good. So then what are you going to do? No, tell me in general terms. General terms. Don't. Well, okay. So what I'm saying is, what did we do up here? Put that in for x. Put that in for x. Put that in for x. So then what are we going to do down here? Put that in for x. Okay. And so which function is going into the other function? Which way is it going? Right. G goes into f. Is that okay? Right, because the g is inside the f. The f is the big one. Okay, so this is how I like to write, because what we talked about this before. What did we talk about before? What is x known, like what is x, really? No, x is x, no. Like when you're talking about evaluating a function, which is essentially what we're doing here, x is just, I said it's just a variable, so what's that mean? Like what can it be? Anything, so it's just a placeholder, it's just sitting there. Okay, so at first this is what I would do, right? Because we're talking about the f function's the big one. So this is still what we're looking at, right? This 2, right, the f function says take whatever you want to plug in, multiply it by 2, and add 5 to it. Right, whatever you want to plug in right here, multiply by 2 and add 5. So what are we plugging in? Okay, so 7x plus 2, because that's what the g function is. And maybe you even want to write this. Maybe you even want to write that if you want to add another step in there. You don't have to. If you understand everything, you don't have to do that step. But right, I'm just going with what we've been doing, right? Whatever's inside these parentheses is what's going in there. It just so happens to be g of x. But what is g of x? 7x plus 2. Okay, so I'm going to lose this a little bit, so you guys are going to have to tell me. So, right, so we were f of g of x. Okay, and you could even, you could even take it another step, because what we were at, what was it, 2? But this is where we were, right? Okay. Was it plus 5? Okay. So, right, you could even take it another step further. You could say, well, if you really want to start substituting in, if you really want this step by step, what should be going on in your brain, right? This is really f of, what was it, 7x plus 2? Sorry. F of 7x plus 2. Is that okay? Now you're not done because you haven't simplified, so let's simplify it. How would you do that? Okay, so you distribute first, good. So what does that give you? 14x plus what? Plus 4 plus 5. Okay, so f of g of x is 14x plus 9. Okay, and everyone, well, when's this ever going to be used? Well, there's all kinds of formulas that you can use where you would need the information from another formula. Okay, and you need to plug that information into your bigger formula. Okay, so usually you have it in a number form, but, anyone that does Excel, has anyone ever done an Excel spreadsheet? I know they could teach a couple classes like that, right, where you're taking a value and plugging it in somewhere else. And does anyone even know what Excel is about? Right? So you take a value from some other cell and plug it into a formula over here. That's this. That's exactly what you're doing here. Okay? Any questions on that? Because we're going to flip it and do g of f of x now. Okay, so now we're doing g of f of x. Okay, so the shell problem is g now, which was 7x plus 2, right? So then all of that is still 7, whatever you're plugging in, you still multiply by 7 and then add 2 to it. Okay, so again, if you want to write it out step by step, what are we plugging in? F of x. Okay, and so then what was f of x then? 2x plus 5. So that's really what you're plugging in. Okay, we're going to get some different information here. But again, it's the same way. You still simplify it the same way. So what does that give you? 14x plus... Okay, so 35 plus 2, so yeah, 14x plus 37. Okay, g of f of x. Is that okay?